Is it time to reveal your real magic and become seen, known, and valued? So, welcome everyone to this week's Visibility Visionary Voices Deep Dive. And today I'm really excited to be introducing you to the wonderful, amazing Louise Miller. We're going to be talking today about overcoming overwhelm so we can get stuff done. And so last week we were here talking about overcoming the not enough voice and talking about what was underneath that, the underlying emotions of shame and shifting into curiosity and the daily habits of planning. And so one of the I'm not enough belief is one of the big visibility blocks, especially for visionaries, especially for women. So, and it really tempts us into overcommitting and unrealistic planning, and that just, of course, reinforces the belief that we're not enough. So this is why I feel like Louise's support and what she's going to be telling us today is a perfect follow-on to that. So if you haven't watched it, that's a really good one to watch, as well as this training. And but this is something I know for visibility work, it can be really busy work, and we can not get out there. So welcome, Louise. Lovely to have you here today.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
And just to tell you a little bit more about Louise, I've known Louise for about 3 years now, and I've known her both as a peer in business, as a partner, doing partnership collaborations, and also as a client. I've been a client with her in a one-to-one, in her group programs, and in her membership. So I can really vouch for her, kind heart and how effective her methods are, especially for somebody who's kind of dyed-in-the-wool creative and not necessarily so amazing at building structures as I am. And what I really love about Louise is her unique approach to this subject that I've often struggled with. She really is on a message to spread compassionate, sustainable, kind productivity across the world. And I love her vision. We're hearing visionaries becoming visible, and Louise's vision is about a world where our value and our self-worth are not based on our productivity and how much we get done. And I love that, because that's such a pain point, I think, in our world today, that we feel so ashamed if we're not getting, all the incredible things done. That's impossible. And her vision is about, moving forward in ways, creating what we want to create, but without pushing, without forcing, without fighting. And she particularly helps us conscious, creative business owners to get stuff done with less stress and more ease, so we can create space for the things that we love to do. And she has some amazing mentoring and gorgeous programs, and she will be telling us about the short program that I did last year that changed everything for me. It's just a 3-week program, and I think, frankly, it's amazing. So let's dive in. Louise, there are so many different productivity experts out there, and I talked a little bit about what's unique about you and your approach, but how did you end up where you are?
Yeah, it's an interesting and probably very common tale that I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to. So when you were saying earlier about my vision about our self-worth not being about everything that we've achieved and how productive we are, that wasn't that wasn't my experience for the first kind of 15 years of my working life. I think, like many of us, I was in a job that was just a completely never ending. The workload was just completely never ending, and it didn't seem to matter where I went. The workload seemed to follow me from job to job. So, I was really good at what I did. I was quite successful. I was very well respected in what I did. And trying to keep up with the never ending workload actually ended up making me ill. it all came to a head when I was preparing to, I can remember it so vividly. I was preparing to take minutes at a really big meeting in the last job that I had before I quit. And I ended up sobbing absolutely uncontrollably in a colleague's office, probably for about half an hour. And I just could not stop, when the tears just won't stop. And that for me was like, okay, this is not right. Ended up being diagnosed with work-related stress and anxiety. I was completely incapable of making any decisions at that time because I was just so exhausted and completely depleted. So my doctor had to make the decision to sign me off work. And through all of that, I just thought, hang on, there's something not right here. There has to be a different way. We're all brought up in this culture that's all about pushing and fighting to keep up and rushing around trying to get everything done. And doing that made me ill. So, I discovered there was a different way. I basically discovered at that time the slow living movement, which for me just completely changed everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I quit my job because I wasn't prepared to carry on. The only way I was going to be able to continue in that job was if I was medicated, which is, fine. Some people might be okay with that choice, but it wasn't right for me. So I removed myself, quit my job, not quite sure what I was going to do, and landed here. Yeah.
Wow. That was such a painful place, but gosh, you must have been on a very deep journey to find your way out of this trajectory, and I totally get that pushing and forcing and stress. Yeah. So, what was it? I mean, I know one of the quotes about this kind of stuff that I love is, one of my teachers, Claire Zamet, says, "Overwhelm is putting the less important things before the more important things." And I love that quote. Ever since I heard it, I wrote it down, I stuck it on a post-it, I looked at it, but then I wondered, that sounds good, how do I actually do that? So I'd love to hear your take, on what you've discovered on this journey.
Yeah. Oh, so excited to share. It's an interesting one. So I had a bit of an existential crisis, actually, first of all, because, I quit my job and I was like, okay, my natural tendency, my natural gifts are helping people to be productive, being organized, being efficient. All of that stuff is what comes naturally to me. But if being productive actually isn't the be all and end all, what do I do? What on earth do I do? So it kind of sent me into a bit of a tailspin until I came up with a new way of thinking about productivity, which relates to what you were just saying there about overwhelm. So a lot of us think about productivity as being about cramming more and more and more into less time. That is the definition that many of us think about when we think productivity. I don't like that. So I've come up with a new definition, which is about doing what's important, as you just said, doing what's important as efficiently as we can to create space for what we love. And it's the what's important piece of that sentence.
What's important. Again, sounds good. How do you do it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And how do we do it? So it's about connecting in, what's important is all related to your vision. So if you can have a regular connection back into your vision and what you're trying to achieve in the world and what you're here to bring forward in the world, which I know the beautiful people that you work with are very much in tune with that. If you can somehow connect that to your productivity, for want of a better word, things will start to flow. You'll be able to see what's important and actually what maybe isn't as important. So it's that regular connection I think is often missing as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And then shall I talk a bit about overwhelm? I think that was the question you asked me and then I went off on a tangent. Yeah, I think, when we find ourselves stuck in overwhelm, we get, and I can so identify with this from all those years ago, like you can't think straight. We get stuck in this loop, this kind of frantic, frazzled loop. That means we can't make good choices.
Yeah.
Hence, my decision. Well, the decision for me to take some time off work, I couldn't make that decision. The GP had to make it for me. We can't make those good choices when we're in that kind of overwhelm loop, and we end up feeling really pushed and pulled around by whatever's going on around us. And then we end up dealing only with the urgent things.
Yes.
And the urgent things are not what's going to help us move forward in our business a lot of the time. You know, we're not then able to be proactive about doing those important things that are going to move the needle, because all we can do is deal with what's in front of us and the person that's shouting the loudest, you know, all of that. And we just feel really out of control. And it's a horrible feeling, really horrible. And I mean, another thing that can happen as well with overwhelm is that actually we become really paralyzed.
Yeah.
And then we can't do anything. And we actually don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at this big thing that we want to do and going, I just don't even know where to begin. I haven't got the time. I'm too busy. And we don't do anything, or we reach for what's easy.
Yeah.
And we reach for what's comfortable, because that is all we've got the bandwidth for.
I totally relate to all of that. And my sense, you know, when I spoke about the kind of the I'm not enough, you know, I'm not good enough belief or feeling that so many of us struggle with, you know, what's often underneath that paralysis is this feeling of shame. You know, if I can't do all of this, then, you know, I better not tell anybody there, I'm going to get judged. And I know for me, you know, feeling my way through that big kind of lump of paralysis that was getting me in the way was essential to facing into actually creating the shift, as well as the brilliant systems that you are putting in place. So it's and this is why the kindness, you know, and the tenderness that you bring to this, rather than the why aren't you superwoman or superman, is so important. So.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what's interesting there, and I noticed this listening to what you shared last week in the gorgeous live that you did last week, you know, again, when we're in this feeling of busyness and overwhelm, we keep our heads down and we think the only way we're going to get through it and come out the other side of the overwhelm is to keep our heads down and just keep going, keep working. I want to get to the end of the list. I just need to go quicker. And actually what you did so beautifully that you spoke about last week was that you actually recognized that you needed to lift your head up and look at what was actually going on and give yourself what you needed to address the shame and all of the stuff that was going on around that you were feeling at that time. And when you just keep your head down in the overwhelm loop, it's impossible to do that. So yeah.
Yes. And that kind of comes into the you know, what people talk about, what I hear a lot of people talking about is the hustle. On the one side, there's a lot of people talking about, you know, doing the hustle and getting it done, and on the other side there's flow, you know, finding our flow. You know, and is that, you know, are we going faster, are we slowing down? So what's your sense of, you know, the balance?
Yeah, it seems to be coming up even more. I don't know what's going on at the moment, but I seem to be having this conversation more and more, you know. And again, it's natural. It's our natural instinct when we're feeling like we've got way too much to do, we're completely overwhelmed, we want to go faster. Again, it's the culture we were raised in, you know, there's a lot of programming going on there. But when all we do is think about pace and we just think, if only I could do this more quickly, we actually miss a lot of the nuance around things. So, you know, whenever people tell me, they sort of ask me, how can I speed up? I actually know that what they need to do is slow the heck down. And just, you know, take a step back, take a pause, slow down, take a breath, so that they can see things more clearly and allow the space for the curiosity to come in. So instead of just thinking, oh, this thing is taking me too long, how can I do it more quickly? We slow down and go, actually, is this thing even important? And if it is, great. But then you can start kind of going, okay, why is this? And I don't like to use the phrase too long, because that in itself sounds really negative, but I haven't quite, okay, why is this taking the amount of time it's taking? It doesn't roll off the tongue in the same way, but you know what I'm saying. You can start to think, is it because I'm distracted? You know, am I, and what's underlying that? There's some resistance there, usually, if there's distraction going on. Is my perfectionism getting in the way, and I'm getting so attached to doing this perfectly that it's taking way longer than perhaps it needs to? Or maybe you could delegate it to somebody else. So there's all these kind of nuanced questions that when you give yourself a pause, slow down a bit, you can start to consider which is actually going to serve you in making changes that are going to help you find that flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that might happen, and it's my very favorite thing when this happens, is that you might discover that actually your pace is your pace. And that's okay.
Oh, beautiful. I'm going to share a poem at the end about pace, because I think this is really important one. There's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
But that's gorgeous, and I love this approach, because you're also, that slowing down helps us to get connected to what might be going on in our inner worlds, and that's always so important, is the inner and the outer. What patterns am I caught up in, and how can I come back to my center and my awareness and my better self, as opposed to the old stories that are running the show.
Yeah, totally. And it's actually quite interesting now I'm thinking about it, to observe that quite a lot of this why can't I do this quicker thing is around the activities people are doing when they want to be more visible. Quite often people think they should be able to write a blog post more quickly than they can.
Yes.
And it's almost as if there's some kind of universal rule book that people think exists out there around how long something is supposed to take to be done, as though we're not all different.
Yeah.
And for some people that are really, really sparky and creative, they'll be able to, maybe not all the time because we have ebbs and flows, but they might be able to produce a piece of really beautiful content really quickly. Now that's not me. I know I need more space.
Me neither.
Yeah. So I need to accept that actually I need the space for my ideas to form and to allow myself the space for that, so that I can do work that I'm really proud of and want to put out in the world, rather than be wishing I was this other person who may not even exist.
Yes.
Who's able to just do this thing really quickly. So accepting our own pace and then using that to inform how we design our days and our weeks, again, is really powerful.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I love that link between, I'd say quite a lot of the people you help, because I know you help conscious business owners, one of the big things that we struggle with is that visibility work, is that content creation, sharing our message. So, what do you see, with the people you work with that they need help with?
Yeah, it seems to be this kind of constant battle between wanting to share and show up when people are feeling inspired, and wanting to be able to just do it when they feel inspired, and also wanting to be consistent with it. And the two things sometimes don't quite meld. And there's no quick kind of magic wand solution I can wave that's going to work for everyone around that, but it's something that I do end up exploring with people quite a lot, is how can we set things up in a way that allows you to capture the inspiration when it's there, but it still allows you to be inspired. And then in the conversations around, if they are feeling like this is taking me too long, something that I see a lot is perfectionism tied up in all of this, which I'm sure ties in with the not enough thing again, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah,
this perfectionism is always trying to prove that we are good enough, on top of a belief that we secretly feel that we're not, because we're comparing ourselves, or we have these unrealistic expectations over where we should be or how long things should take. So what do you see as the kind of, the big mistake that people make in terms of, their planning habits?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, again, when we're feeling overwhelmed, coming back to our good friend Overwhelm, when we're feeling overwhelmed, quite often, and I've done this so many times, you go, oh, my brain is going to explode. I can't cope with this. Let me grab a fresh piece of paper and write a new list. And that feels like a really good idea. And there is nothing inherently wrong with that. So if you're doing that, that's okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. The problem that I see with that approach, though, is that it's not a long-term solution. It's a great way of getting yourself out of that feeling of overwhelm in the moment. But you've actually not done the things, you've still not done the things that you needed to do. Yeah. You've just tidied it all up a bit, which again, great, but you've still not done the thing. So what I think is better is to find a way of managing our to-dos and capturing things in a way that supports us in getting them done as well, and feels really supportive in the long term. And I know I shared this story with you recently. I was listening to a podcast, the Good Life podcast over Christmas, where Jonathan Fields was talking to the actor Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't expecting Matthew McConaughey to talk about getting things done, but he did. And he was talking about this kind of vertical stack of responsibilities that are on his shoulders, and the weight of that, and how heavy that is, and what a heavy burden that is. And what he said that really struck me was that when he takes the vertical responsibilities off his shoulders and lays them out laterally in front of him, suddenly you can see everything one at a time. And he just said it so beautifully. He said, you can hop from lily pad to lily pad, getting the same amount of stuff done, but without the stress.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that image. Kind of pile that sits on top of our heads to hopping from lily pad to lily pad, and just that sense of, rather than, oh, I have to have it all done yesterday, to that kind of sense of, okay, there is a clear time for that one, and then I'll take the step to that one. It's just such a beautiful metaphor.
It really is. And you can only, again, it's all of this comes back to slowing down. It's kind of a common thread, because you can't do that unless you give yourself the space. You know, that getting organized, we need to gift ourselves the space and the time to do it.
Yeah.
And again, just grabbing a piece of paper and writing a new list, it's great in the moment, but you're going to repeat the cycle. A month later, you're going to feel exactly the same and do the same thing again.
My problem with that, and I've been a great to-do list person until, about a year ago, I think you introduced me to your system, and that changed everything for me. But before that, I would write the to-do list, or I would get a new to-do list app and put it all in there. But then, because it was just this big, huge, massive thing, I would just get allergic to it. I would just go, I don't want to look at that, because I just feel completely stressed whenever I see it all. Yeah. And I know the system that you introduced me to was so much more effective a way of planning. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that, or how people can find out more.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It's amazing.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, as I've said, what's missing with a lot of those to-do lists is that they don't actually help you to do the thing. They just, as you said, you look at them and we fixate on all the things we haven't done. Oh, and it leaves us feeling exhausted, doesn't it? So what I've done is I've created a course. It's called Tame Your To-Do List. And it's a system that will capture the things you need to do, and then will actually support you in getting them done in the long term. It's a sustainable thing. It's not a quick fix solution that you'll have forgotten about in a month's time. This is going to support you in the long term. So it's all about, getting you organized once and for all, so that instead of having the notebooks everywhere and the post-it notes everywhere and a million to-do lists and stuff on your phone, it's all in one place, so that you've not got that niggling feeling that you've forgotten something. It's all in one place, so that you can, like I said, get yourself organized, find your flow, and really focus on what's important. So over the course of our 3 weeks together in the course, first of all, I guide you through this process of gathering everything together. And that is something, again, that can feel quite scary, because we're not used to seeing everything that we've got going on all in one place. Yeah. But actually, it's a really powerful process, because when you can see all of that in black and white, that's when you're then able to make really conscious and intentional choices about what gets your time and your energy and your attention. Yeah. So it can be a bit daunting, but
I know for me, that bit when I did it, I really had to kind of lean into the shame feeling.
Yeah.
And it felt very dense. It's like if an idea is like air, thoughts are like air, and emotions are like water. Shame can feel like walking through the swamp, the mud. So I did have to face that. But once I did, it was so worth it to kind of come through to the other side of that and find a way forward.
And it gives you you can actually see things clearly enough to let go. Someone who'd done the course with me, she had something on her to-do list that was making her feel that shame and that guilt for 3 years. Yeah, it was sitting on her to-do list. Nobody had asked her to do it again, and it was making her feel terrible. But the process of seeing it all and actually facing it allowed her to release and let that go.
Yeah.
And she felt so much lighter as a result. And again, you can't do that if you don't look at it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And what I went on to do last year, because a lot of my focus last year was moving house, and that process of bringing things to completion that kind of kick-started with this, I just kind of go, what else can I complete? And I'm a great starter. As a creative, I love starting new things and completing things, but I freed up so much energy from that focus on completing things, you know. And that, and even and sometimes it's completing is just like, no, that's done. I'm not going to move that forward. It's not actually doing anything with it. It's just deciding.
And that
done with that.
The not deciding, it takes a huge amount of energy as well. So this process in the first week of the course about gathering it all together, it's not just about gathering it all together, it's about evaluating and letting things go and all of that good stuff that comes from it. And then I don't just leave you in that situation. We do move you through that. So I will then guide you through setting up your brand new system. So it's all about, like I said, sort of capturing the tasks in a way that actually encourages you to consider the time and energy that you have available for them. So what the system does is it encourages you to think about the when as well as the what, which again is a missing piece with a lot of those vertical to-do lists. Because like you said, then you makes you feel like everything needs to happen now. Whereas this system, which I guide you to set up, I kind of walk you through it step by step. It does that whole thing of laying it out laterally in front of you. So you can, as Matthew McConaughey so beautifully put it, little leap from thing to thing.
No, look at the lily pad.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, and then kind of once we've done that and we've got the setup in place, I then do show you sort of how to work with it day to day. So the idea being that you're going to start every month, every week, and every day with absolute clarity about what's important, what needs to get done, not just in your business, but in the whole of your life. It's bringing it all together.
Yes, and that's beautiful. That's something else I think that you do that not everybody does around this is thinking about all of your life. Not just, you know, so that you've really got that sense of, okay, I've got a big house move coming up. Let me be realistic about what I can get done rather than forgetting about that.
Exactly. And it sounds kind of obvious when you say it like that, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't make the connection. You know, I was working with someone once who had to cancel a live event because she was trying to organise this event at the same time as moving house. And it hadn't even occurred to her that maybe trying to do all of that at once might not be a good idea. So we all, you know, it's natural that people do that, but this system will help you to think about the bigger picture. And then, you know, at the end of that, because we're all different and I don't believe that there's a fixed prescriptive way of doing things, I will encourage you to make it work for you and find what feels good for you. And I sort of share some audios and stuff to invite you to be creative with it.
Yeah, that's essential. And I'm still working with my I call my Focus and Flow journal that I introduced last year, which, because doing it, you know, and I know people can do paper-based or, you know, electronically, whatever works for you, but I know for me, I need to see it, I need to write it down, and that's what works for me. And it's still such a trusted resource for me, and what I love, and I'm, you know, so just wanted to make clear that one of the things that I found exceptionally valuable about the course and makes it incredibly good value as well is that I think is it just a limited number of people get a one-to-one session with you as well. So anyone who's thinking about that I found that incredibly valuable. So I think if anyone, you know, you are, and I'd love to take some questions here if anybody's got any questions for Louise about this as well, pop them in the chat now and we'll come back to them. But to have that tailored to your own, because I got a real insight in that about when I do my planning, that really shifted everything for me, and that kind of opened the door. I discovered that if I do it in the morning after I've meditated and when I'm nice and clear, rather than at the end of the day when I'm kind of in that, oh, I haven't got it all done, and then I create the big list. That just really works for me, and that came from the one-to-one chat that we had where we made that tweak, and I really made it my own. Now I do my vision planning, I call it, because I need to connect in, you know, with the clear energy for what's important, and then plan it. it's made such a big shift for me.
Oh, that makes me so happy. If it's allowing you to do more of your brilliant work in the world with slightly less stress, more ease, that's what it's all about. So that makes me really happy.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'd love to, you know, I know you're going to do summary before we finish, but you wrote this gorgeous poem, and you know I love sharing poetry. So is it okay if I share your beautiful poem?
Please do. I'll just sit here and squirm.
And then we'll check to see if there's any questions.
Yeah.
This is a gorgeous poem that Louise wrote, which really, you know, to me just, you know, it just tells us, you know, where her heart is. And the poem is called In Honour of Perfect Pace. I have no sense of how long things should take, she confides. None of us do, not really, I whisper. I just feel like everything takes too long, she despairs. Or is that just how long things take, I ask. How can I get things done more quickly, she urges. Perhaps you can't, I reply. Defeatist, resigned, radically accepting. The right pace. It's different for each of us. It's different today, different tomorrow. Breathe it in. Accept. Enjoy. Now, energized, burning, bursting forth. Now slow, considered, intentionally so. Now rest. Now bloom. Choose your pace, consciously allowing. All is how it should be. All will unfold in the right time. No need to force. No need to rush. Your perfect pace will find you if you let it. That's just so beautiful, and for me that which really captures, you know, the kind of your heart and the energy that you bring to this work. So it's gorgeous. So I'd love to, if we could summarize the key points, what would you say?
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that poem so beautifully, first of all. That was lovely, thank you. So I think what I would really love people to take away from this conversation is, you know, if we can just allow ourselves to rest is absolutely key. If we can allow ourselves to slow down and find, you know, allow that right pace that we talked about. And if we can just allow ourselves the time and space to get organized in a way that's going to serve us over the long term, that's not a quick fix, not a band-aid. If we can allow that, so the rest, the slowing down and then getting organized, that's what then allows us to think more clearly. And when we're thinking more clearly, we make better choices. So in terms of the choices we're making as we move through our days with what we're going to focus on, you know, we can think more clearly, make those good choices, and then that's where we can really focus on what's important and let go of what's not important.
Yeah.
And when you're doing all of that, you know, that is how we overcome overwhelm, and that is how we find our flow. It's all comes back to the slowing down and giving ourselves a space. So that's what I would love people just to sit with and ponder upon.
I could really feel that in my whole body and energy system. So it's gorgeous. So we've got a question in from Angiris, who's asking, and this is a great question. Do you think there's a different masculine and feminine approach to productivity?
Oh goodness, yeah. So the masculine approach is where I was when, you know, right back at the beginning of our conversation, with being stuck in this paradigm of must do more, must do it faster, you know, that whole masculine way of being. I mean, I didn't think about it in these terms, but I think that what I've landed on is a much softer, more feminine way that allows for our natural ebbs and flows and allows for our natural cycles, rather than feeling we need to operate in this kind of plateau of pushing and doing all of the time. But I do think there also is space for both.
Yeah.
Because there will be times in our businesses and with what we've got going on in life that we need to harness a little bit of that drive in order to get stuff done. It's just inevitable, but it's not operating in that at that level all the time, because that's not sustainable. So it's being able to balance it out.
Beautiful.
And for me, it's being more in the feminine than the masculine if I can. which is a challenge for me because my natural instinct is the masculine. So it is, it doesn't always come naturally and easily to me, but life has been so much flowier and lovelier when I have been able to harness it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, it feels like it's getting that balance, isn't it? They're both valuable energies, but I think the world that we live in has been heavily biased towards one way, and now we're starting to explore how can we bring the two together in a way that's more balanced.
Yeah.
So great. So I'm going to share the link to where people can find out more about your gorgeous course that's coming up, and I would also encourage anyone who is interested in thinking about it to hop in quickly so you can get in one of those bonus one-to-one calls with Louise, because it's super valuable, and honestly I think this course is incredibly valuable, especially if you get in and get a one-to-one call with you as well, and good value. Okay, anything else that you'd like to share before we leave? But thank you so much for coming on to talk to me today, Louise, because this is such a big thing. For so many people that I work with and that I see in my community are struggling with this, and I really know that when I really got my act together around this, that's when I really started showing up and doing talks and getting visible and not kind of spinning my wheels and doing all kinds of things that actually weren't moving me forward. So it's such a valuable thing to have. So thank you, Tracy, who's saying thank you. Very interesting, encouraging. So thanks everyone for being here with us today. Any final words, Louise?
Oh, just thank you so much for having me. And I just do want to say, off the back of what you've just said, keep connecting back in with your vision and thinking about where you're trying to get to, and see how you can hook that in with how you're getting things done, because it does make a huge difference if you can connect all of it doesn't matter how small the task, try and relate it back to your vision.
Yes. Well, it's a perfect topic for our visibility for visionary leaders. So great. Okay. So take care. And have you got any more questions? Pop them in the comments. For anybody that's watching the replay, pop your questions in the comments, and I or Louise will be sure to answer any other questions that you have. Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye for now.